Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's November 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and um, really, we spent most of the day trending down here, and in the end, we actually closed down. You can see this was kind of a continuation of yesterday's sell-off after we just kind of consolidated a little bit in the early morning, and then we sold on off, and we ended up closing fairly close to the lows of the day. So, for all intents and purposes, I'd call today a downtrend, even though we did spend a good bit of the morning just kind of going sideways here. We still had a downward bias the whole time. You really couldn't find the trend line easily until we got this first swing here. You drew that, and then the rest of it kind of lined up. And really, the only thing you could do is copy this line and drag it down to the lows. You drag it here, it doesn't fit because we pushed on through, so then you automatically go to the next level, and you can see that's exactly where we ended up bouncing. And that pretty much gave you your midpoint as well. When we bounced here, you could have copied that line, and you could have seen where we're kind of working both sides of that line right through here. That kind of helps out with that, your midline kind of proving it. Although the midline was not really a big help. So really what you needed was this trend line here. Um, and even though we're going sideways here, look how the EMA is still pointing down. Notice how we're making lower highs. Even though we're flat across here, we're making lower highs until we get this one little push, and then we make two legs down to a new low, and then we kind of reverse. Um, so this is so close. It's really hard to say that that's a convincing close outside, but on most days that's good enough. And we did correct after that. We did reverse. But without a break of this trend channel, I'm not crazy about getting long up through here. So you notice there's like one green one. There's just not and that's where we had a reversal pattern. But I'm not going to go long into that trend line. And I'm not crazy about going long here, even though there is a second entry. I guess I probably should make that one green. Because you can't argue with the trend, even though it's not doing what you're expecting here yet. You can't argue with the trend. So um, notice you made the new high. You pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and that's a nice big bullish bar. It was an easy scalp, but you didn't get anything more than that out of it. Then you have the failed second entry long, a chance to go short again. So this one's real close to being blue, and I should have had it marked green probably all along. But that late in the day with all these nice trades, I'm just not going to probably risk that one. So that's part of the reason I'm a little hesitant to make it blue. But, let's back out, talk about the trades. When I came in, we were working up. And you can see the EMA working higher. It's obviously an uptrend. We got an overshoot here, which generally will lead to a break pretty soon afterward, or fairly soon after that. And you can see we did get a little close outside here, a couple legs up to a new high, and then we reversed. And you can see there's your first leg up. And I would measure from here for your second leg. And we didn't quite get there. We missed it by a tick or two. And then it obviously reversed, just like you would expect it to do. And it was all downhill after that. But anyway, we're working up when I come in. We'd been working up, and we had this trend line working down, and we don't have a close outside of it yet. So we get a close here, we pull back, and then we bounce right off that trend line. This is really your signal bar. I would have used this but your safety stop still has to go below this bar. It's a tick lower, so you put that right there. And when it comes back, I'm definitely going to enter again when it reverses, because now you got a second entry long here. And you could almost treat that like a second entry there. There's two legs back right here, even though we went one tick higher. And if you went on to a slightly larger chart, you would get a second entry here too. It'd be first entry, pull back second entry. So, but irregardless, that's getting a little ahead of where we want to be with these videos. So I like entering there, and then like adding on there if you're not out, which you shouldn't be most likely. And you can see after that it takes off pretty good. Then it pulls back. You get a first entry long, pull back second entry long. This is not a very good signal bar. Um, but you got a double bottom here, so that's like a new low, and that's a failed second entry short as well. So you can treat that like a trap. And you can see it pushed on up to a new high pretty quickly, and then it pulls back. You get another second entry long there, but we've already had a break, and we've had a couple of pushes up to a new high, and and even though it's a second entry there, there's a lot of resistance across here. You may have room to get out there. It's real close, but I think you're risking it taking that trade, especially after you already had a close and you've got a new high and you've got a couple of legs up to a new high. When it failed to go lower there and turn back up again, you might try one more time. Again, I'm not even really comfortable making that one green, but there's a bit of a trap there on that one, so you might consider that one. And so I did make that one green where I didn't hardly. This one actually you could argue for it to be green as well. The only thing I would say is you have to have room to get out before you get to this high. So if you don't have room there, you're not going to enter that one. And if you don't have room here, if you use a limit order, which would have worked, it broke higher and turned down. You could have gotten in enough room to get out, and it would have worked. But I'm just not crazy about it because you've already had your close outside here, and you've had at least two pushes to a new high. So anything after that is starting to get a little suspect. I would have liked this long up here, or this short up here. I'm sorry, not long, but the bar is just too big, and then you get a lower high here, but you're just going sideways. It never breaks lower until you've had several bars across there. So just wait, and then all of a sudden you get the reversal pattern. It pushes on through, it pulls back with a failed second entry long, and it goes higher and turns and goes right out the other side. You could have your stop waiting there, or you could wait till this closes and put your stop there, however you want to do that. And there's a breakout pullback short here, but it's such a big bar um, that I would wait and just see if it tries to come back again, and it does. And then you get another one right off the key entry point, the trend line there. And now you got a little bit of room here. You still don't have a whole lot, and there's some um, support over here, so I'm still a little leery of this one. But you got this trend line working down, and you're probably going to push on down and make a new low. So I think that one's worth risking. That's a really bearish bar, even though it didn't close exactly on its low. Look at all that stem. That's still really bearish. The last two have been really bearish. Um, so I think it's worth risking that one. This is almost just a repeat of that. It's a breakout pullback short, but this one didn't go below. It just kind of sat there sideways, and then you got the matching lows. So I'm not as crazy about entering there. Same thing here. It's a very neutral bar. So I don't think you want to enter any further. Okay, I had a little interruption there, but notice how we're getting further and further away from the EMA too, and that's the other problem here. We're going to snap back eventually, and you want to be real careful that you don't get caught going short right in here and then it bounce. Okay, I had another interruption there, but so there's too much danger of it snapping back. I mean, this thing could have just kept going, but I'm going to wait on a better entry than that. These aren't good signal bars or anything like that, so I'd wait. And of course, it does. You get a new low, pulls back. You get a first entry, pull back second entry. The only reason I don't like this one is it's not a very good signal bar. There's still a lot of stem, but there's a lot of stem on this side too. There's enough reason you might consider that one. But I'm probably going to wait and see if you get the reversal pattern and notice it pushes on through, pulls back and fails. And we don't care what the signal bar looks like now. Just go short below that and look at it. They've trapped everybody long now, and now look at it. It runs to the bottom. So now you had this trend coming down. You had a break, a move to a new low, and it reverses. Um, you really don't get a chance to go. You might consider this long. This is your reversal pattern. Look how sideways it's going. I don't have my lines on there, but I think you're better off to skip this one. You could argue to go long right here because notice the new low, first entry short, second entry short, but it's right into the EMA. We're really going kind of sideways here. So once I put the lines on there, you can see that, and I just don't think that's a good entry. Yeah, it took off, and you missed a good trade, but that's what you have to do sometimes to make sure that you don't make a mistake and get burned. Try just like right here, trying to go long and you got burned. And so you're better off to miss a trade like this than to get burned. And so that's where patience comes in trading. So just keep that in mind. That's just not a good entry. We were looking for a possible reversal here, or at least a temporary correction. I wouldn't say necessarily a reversal because this trend line's played out, but that looks like a really short-term trend line at this point. We're probably going to have a bigger pattern here, and sure enough, we do. Notice how it runs right back up there, and then you get a first entry long, pull back second entry long, and it fails, goes short right there, because I would have drawn that line right there after that first swing, and then we can't get above it, so I'm definitely not going long into that. And when it fails, I'm going to go short right there. I really thought it would take on off here, but it doesn't. We find support, and it bounces, and then you get another short. Notice how it tried to go higher a couple of times, and you get a nice bearish bar here with a lower high. So I like that one to go short. We get another lower high here, but it's right back into that support, so I'm not going to go short into that. Look how it's just, even though we're going lower here, there's a lot of sideways action, a lot of support. Then it bounces. Again, I'm still not going long because we got this trend line up here. And what does it do? It turns down right off that trend line. I like going short there. Again, I really thought it was going to take off here, but it doesn't. We're still fighting to get through this support, but it makes a lower high here. This one really should be green because we've got all the support and you don't have much room here. The only way you can enter that one, I'm going to go ahead and change that to green. At the time, I really thought we were going to go lower, but looking at it after the fact, I mean, when you're looking at that, that's pretty strong support there. And we bounced some over here there as well. So the reason you got this little wedge here is because this trend line's holding, but yet this support's holding. So I'm not crazy about going short there unless you got room to get in before you get here, and you really don't there. But if you wanted to let it drop lower and put a limit order in there and see what happened, you would have got in here and then gotten out. Same thing here. This is really the only reason I'm willing to leave this one red is because we had a new swing high here. It's higher than this swing high. And so now you got a failed second entry long. But again, it's really, really borderline not having enough room here to get out. So you got to remember that. If you don't have room to get out, you might want to skip that one. But it is a trap. And we do have a trend line working down that we keep playing off of. And look what happens. You had just enough to get out here. That's amazing that's the reason we only go for 4 ticks, because it's amazing how often you get just enough room to get out and then it bounces, and that's what happened here. Again, you can't go long because we've been making lower highs all the way down through here. And then suddenly we push up, we get a little break, tips outside that trend line and reverses, and you get a big bearish reversal bar. I like going short right there. You don't know that it's going to take off like that, but you figure it's going to push on through and give you a scalp for sure. But this thing, the bottom just falls out. All it is it took a little bit of time to push through that support. And the only clues that you really have that you're probably going to go short there is the trend line, which is the key entry point, and the fact that we're making lower highs all the way down through here. This is not really a lower high, but it's still a double top, same thing. And all the rest of these are really lower highs until you get this little trap here. And again, there's a little bit of resistance right across there, and that's like that's basically a failed break higher as well. So another reason to get in there. And then of course we correct. We get a little trend line working up. We get a close outside here, a move to a new high, but we're not back to the trend line. So even though it was probably tempting to go short right there on that second entry, this is a double bottom, so you can treat that like a new low. There's a first entry, and then you move up, you get a second entry. But that's not a very good signal bar at all, and you would have just got trapped. And so now you got your close outside moved to a new high, and you turn down right off the trend line again, and you got a big bearish bar. And that's where you want to go short. And that's what happens a lot of people. I get a couple of emails today from the same guy, and every time he was just maybe a little bit early getting short. As an example, he probably got short here when if he'd have just waited till prices got back to the trend line, he'd have been okay there. I'm trying to remember exactly where he was getting in. There was another one over here. Um, Actually, it was yesterday's chart, but he had a couple of times like that where he'd just be just a little bit early. So just be a little more patient and let the trend lines play out, and that's going to help a lot. If you don't let these trend lines play out, you're going to be in trouble. Sometimes you'll miss a trade letting them play out, but like I showed you over here, it's better to miss that trade than to get in at the wrong time. So look how we just push right through the EMA, pull back, and if you draw your trend line there, and it gives you a big bearish bar, and it's off to the races, and right to exactly where you're expecting it to bounce. Right off those lows right there. And I just keep, if it keeps going, you just keep moving it down. So, but it does, it bounces there, so you know you got your line in the right place. And you really had enough information up here before it got down there to figure out that this looks like a good midline. And you want to see prices reacting off both sides of your midline to prove it. If not, don't trust it until you get some other kind of proof. But really, there were only two other longs here. We already kind of talked about them. We made our low here. Again, it's real tempting to go long here. There's even a little breakout pullback short here. But you got to go long, short at the low of the day. And even though it works, that's another one I'm just not crazy about. If it would have ticked higher and turned down, I would have said, yeah, maybe. But not the way it worked out there. So there is, notice this is a little double bottom. First entry short, second entry short, it fails. So you got a trap there, and you figure prices are probably headed back to the upper trend line now. And this is just a little pullback to test the EMA, and that gives you your trend line, as you can see there. And then it pulls back again, but that bar's, it actually went higher first and then came down. So I don't think you want to enter that high into right into those highs after you already had a better entry here. Actually, let me back up a little bit. That actually your entry was above this bar. That's the reason I didn't mark this again, because notice that on this failed second entry short, prices never broke above it. It had to get a little inside bar, and then it broke above. So I would have been okay going long there. But your stop, this is really your signal bar, so your stop still has to go down here. And once you're already in there, I wouldn't be adding on to this when it went higher above this, because we're already approaching our trend line up there. So I hope that makes sense. But really, I don't know if I would have taken any of these trades. But we're working higher, and then you finally get a close outside this trend line, and you get a second entry long with a nice bullish bar. I'm more apt to take that one. That one's real close to being blue. The only reason it's not is this is this is late in the day, and you've had a little close outside here, but it's not a really strong close. And so I'm just not convinced that we're not going to go lower again with a big sell-off like this. We're probably going to retest those lows even, and you don't really have a super strong convincing close. Even though that closes outside, like I said, on most days that's good enough. But on a day where we've been trending down real strongly the last couple of days, I'm probably going to be a little leery that this thing's really reversed until I get a bigger pattern rather than just a real tight bounce like that. So you can get a bounce like this just simply from all these people that have gotten short seeing a bounce and not wanting to give their profit back, so they start exiting and it starts running. But as soon as everybody's gotten out that wants out, it kind of dies off again. Next thing you know, it's going down again. So yeah, this one's borderline. You could even argue for that to be blue. I'm just not crazy about it, but Also, here's another reason that I don't really like it for blue is that that's your first close outside of that little short-term trend line. And so there's a good chance it breaks higher and turns down and then goes up. But so that's another reason not to trust that one. And that would actually keep it from being blue when you look at it like that. So even though this is a bigger pattern, it's bigger than this pattern, the big two-tiered channel is a bigger pattern than all of them, so it's probably going to be the deciding factor. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the day. Another pretty good day, really. Once we hit about 9 o'clock, and there was news today. That's the other thing. That's the main reason you got this big move here. Is this was all FOMC news, and then there was the 9:30 oil news, which really didn't do much at all. So sometimes oil is a big factor, sometimes it's not. But FOMC is almost always going to get you some kind of little fireworks, even if it's only temporary. And that came right in here somewhere on that sell-off. And so that might have been a reason not to take a couple of these trades as well. I didn't really factor that in when I was marking these trades, but you definitely want to factor that in. This is where your 1 o'clock hit. So, and notice the price action still worked even though, but it didn't take long to kind of reset, and then we're right back where we were and we start working lower again. And that's what happens on news items. They almost always reset within an hour or two. And it starts over and just resets basically. Prices will move back to where they were originally and it starts over again. So yeah, you may not have entered these last couple of trades just because of the timing of it. You probably were all right on, let me find which bar that was. No, that's right in the 1 o'clock hour. So you may not have taken either one of those trades. So that might have, this really might have been your last trade of the day right here until later in the day and maybe taking that one. So just remember that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.